Why is in our culture, when you come with knowledge, motherfuckers turn their back on that. But they love all the street shit. But anything that makes us look smart in the industry, they turn their back on. And do you think that them other motherfuckers that put the money into this shit, why they don't never stand beside nothing that make us look good, but stand behind everything that make us look fucked up?
What up, world? Live on that with Mr. Be Great today, Lamar King Sr. Glad y'all tapped in with me. It's another all positive podcast. And Mr. Be Great today has some words of encouragement. And y'all already know. I'm just going to jump right on in. And the topic of discussion today is to change your future, you must change your thoughts now. Now, many of us, we have our thoughts about life. We have our opinions. We have our viewpoints. We have the things that we hold near and dear to our heart that we stand on, that we wouldn't change for nothing in the world. But Mr. Be Great today is here to tell you that if you want to change your current situation, or you want to change your future situation, it starts by changing the way you think. In order to get something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. And the first thing you have to do is change your thought pattern. Change the way you see things. Change the way you look at life. Many of us hold values and things to our way of life to a certain standard. We hold it and we stand on it. We're firm. We're not changing. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you show me. I don't care what has been proven. I don't care what type of information is out there in the world, that I'm going to stand on it. That's what it is. And this is what it's going to be. But I challenge my listeners to be open. I challenge you to see things from a different perspective. Express empathy in situations that you normally wouldn't. Because if you constantly handle things the way you've always handled it, if you constantly think on the same scale the way you've always thought, regardless of what you've been shown, regardless of what's been placed in front of you, you're going to find yourself stagnant. You're going to find yourself in the same scenarios, the same situations. And that's why it's important for you to be open and be willing to change some things about yourself. One of the main things I've incorporated in my life is the power of positive thinking. The power of positive thinking is a life hack. It is a tool that you can use in your life to where you can just stop looking at things with a half glass empty type mentality and change it to a half glass full mentality. Like, it's so many things that people are faced with, so many debates online, so many back and forths with people because they stand firm on what they believe in. They stand firm on what they believe as truth. And that's the whole thing. Belief is a solid opinion about something. That's what people don't understand. When you believe in something or you have a belief about something, that is a highly opinionated matter that oftentimes is confused with facts, that's confused with truth. We take it on as it is. We take it on as that's just the way it is. Mr. Be Great today. That's just how things are. That's just the way life is. But your life is anything that you so choose to think about. There's so many things that people just won't give up on. They won't stand down. And that's a place that you don't want to find yourself in. Right? You gotta challenge yourself. You gotta push yourself. You gotta be willing and stop being so firm on every single aspect of life that you're open, being open to new information, and do your research. Like, it's so much in this age of information. Ignorance is at an all-time high. People can see stuff. People can have evidence of it. People can I'm talking about people can have things in their life that they see repeatedly over and over again and still fail to accept any new information. And that's a place you don't want to be, right? And you got to change those negative thought patterns. Our mind is programmed to prevent us from hurt, harm, or danger. Our mind is programmed to fight or flight. Our mind is programmed to stand firm on things that we've been indoctrinated with, things we've been introduced to at an early age that we hold near and dear to our heart. We won't shy away from at any capacity. And that's a hurting thing for your growth. That is something that's stunning your growth, because you won't be open to something else. And I get it. I know some people are experts in this, and some people have vast experience in this and that. But it doesn't mean that you can't learn something new. It doesn't mean that you can't be introduced to new information. You got to develop some strategies to achieve new goals. I think we all have goals. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations to do great things in life. And if you're not where you want to be in life, and most people aren't, most people are inspired to have more. Most people are inspired to do better in bigger things as they move throughout this world that we live in. So in essence, no one is where they want to be. No one is where, unless you're just content with your current life, and some people are, and which by all means, if that's you, fine and dandy. But I'm a firm believer that my listeners are people who inspire to do great things, who inspire to do better things, who inspire to do things differently in their life to receive a different outcome. But if you're constantly looking at life through a spectrum of which you've always looked at them, then you're going to continuously to get the same predictable outcome that you've always gotten. It may be in a different form. It may be in a different situation. It may be a different scenario. But in essence, it's still the same outcome. And it's a hard pill to swallow, because we're creatures of habit. We do things repeatedly in the same form, the same fashion, each and every day. Most of us put our same leg in our pants every morning. Me, I'm a right legger. Some people may be a left legger. We all put the same shoe on first. We put the same sock on first. We put the same arm in the sleeve first. We are creatures of habit. We do the things the exact same way each and every time. And more times than not, our thinking is in the same way. Our thinking and our thoughts and the way we view things and the way we see life is a repeated cycle of something that we've done over and over and over again. But I'm here to challenge my listeners. If you want to change your future, if you want to change the future for your family, you want to change the future for your kids and your spouse and your loved ones around you, I challenge you to try to do something different. I challenge you to change your thought process now. Because see, so many people think that bravery is something, or courage is something that you do without fear. You're not afraid. Courage is something that you're just unafraid. That's so far from the truth. Bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is not the absence of skepticism. Bravery is facing fear, or facing skepticism, or facing caution, and doing it anyway. Because there's so many things that you want to do, but for some reason or another, you're afraid, because you may have seen someone else try it and they failed. So you feel like your outcome may be similar, or you may have experienced something in your life, in your past life, and it shows its head again, and you're afraid to act on it now because you've seen it before. But I challenge you to have courage. I challenge you when you face adversity and you face the spirit of fear and the fear of caution, that you have to do it anyway, and you have to have an open mind, because this whole vast internet that we have, this whole book of knowledge that we have on this World Wide Web, it gives us so many tools and resources that we can navigate this thing called life in a better way and in a different way. But so many of us are so accustomed to doing things the same exact way as mama did. We're so accustomed to doing the same exact things that we did in college or high school. But when life continues to roll on and we get into our older years and our middle years, we want to still operate in the capacity as if we're teenagers, as if we were in our 20s. If you're in your 20s or your younger years of life, you got time to continue to grow. But in order to get something vast and something in abundance, you got to change that thought process today. You got to change the way you see things today. So many people that have given up on their dreams and given up on things and not taking a chance or taking a risk on life because they fear the outcome. They're trying to play mind reader or fortune teller in their own mind, in their own life, and they're afraid to move. They're afraid to take action. But Mr. Be Great today is here to tell you, man, you have the capabilities. You have all the resources. You have the support system, but yet and still you're acting as if you don't. You're acting as if you're a little kid waiting on mommy to pick you up when you fall. We all going to go through failures in life. We're all going to have mishaps in life, but you got to have the bravery and the courage to move forward and jump anyway. So many of us just stay stagnant. We stay in the same situation. We stay in the same environment. We stay in the same circle of influence each and every day, and we're expecting something great. We're expecting something big, and we're still operating in the same capacity that we have always done. So many of us has used this or coined this phrase as independent, but yet and still you seek and yearn for dependency on someone else or something else. If you're so independent, then you don't need a job. If you're so independent, you don't need a car. If you're so independent, you don't need friends. You don't need family. So many people have just got it out the mud. I don't need nobody. That is a mindset and a thought process that is hindering you from going to the next level. It's hindering you from achieving a level of peace, a level of happiness, a level of abundance in life. And it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard process and a hard pill to break because we are so accustomed to sticking to our guns. We're so accustomed to just doing it the way we've always done it. We're so accustomed to just thinking the same way. So many of us, and you can place, this topic in any facet or any phase of your life. And you look at it, and if you analyze it, if you be truthful with yourself, you'll see that you've been doing the same thing the same way each and every day of your life. But yet and still, you have these big goals. You want to do these different things. You want to achieve more. You want to, have more for your kids and your family. But yet and still, you're still operating as if you were a high school senior. You're still operating as if you're a college freshman. And if you want something different, you got to do something different. And it all starts in the mind. It all starts in the way you see things. It all starts in the way you view life. And it's so subtle. It's so subtle and minute that we look at it as it's not a big thing, because we all look at life as you got to do these great, extraordinary things. You got to do these, go big or go home. But it's the small things. It's the little thoughts that creep into your mind when you're trying to venture out into that business, when you're trying to venture out into a new relationship, when you're trying to venture out and trying to change your environment, and that fear creeps in and that doubt creeps in, and you start reverting back to the way you've always handled things. A lot of us are in our current situation because we're afraid. We don't have trust. We don't have trust in ourselves. We don't have faith in our capabilities. And I'm trying to get to someone. I'm trying to get someone to see that regardless of the things you go through, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, just because you change your thought process doesn't mean that life is going to just all of a sudden just become easy. It doesn't mean that everything is just going to go right. Everything is just going to just act in a perfect way. It's not going to happen. You're still going to have adversity. You're still going to have obstacles you're going to have to overcome. You're still going to have mountains you have to climb. But you still got to operate. You got to do it anyway. You got to do it anyway, even in the presence of fear, even in the presence of doubt. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? Dust yourself off and do it again. And we face this each and every day. And so many of us are just afraid of failure. So many of us are just afraid of living life on our own terms because we've seen it before, or we've seen it in someone else's life. And we stick to our guns. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We'd rather die on that hill of what we believe in and what we hold as truth than to learn new stuff, than to learn to be open to new information. And it's a sad day in this world when we have all this vast information. I look back at my grandparents, I look back at my great grandparents, and I look at what they had to deal with through racial disparities, economical disparities, social disparities. And to be truthful, they were a greater group of people. They achieved more with so much less. And now here we are today in 2023, greatest countries in the world, with all the resources, all the money, and yet it seems like we haven't made strides. It seems like we haven't overcome the small things that we deal with because we're so focused on the bigger picture. We're so focused on the big things. We haven't fixed the way we see things. We're not open to new information. We're not going to change our views based on new information. We're not going to change our views even if we see that it's correct. Even if we know a person that may be from a different side or a different voting party or different religion that can give us something that can help us. And because we're so stubborn in our thinking, and we're so wholeheartedly on standing on our goals and standing on what we believe and hold as truth, that we will pay it no mind. We won't even accept it. We won't even bring it in. We won't even use it in our lives because we're so stubborn. And I challenge my listeners, I challenge you that you got to be open. You got to be willing to learn something new. You got to be willing to accept new information that you may not have ever agreed with. You got to be willing to take it in and analyze it and think for yourself. Stop using old ideologies and old thought processes and try to use them in today's world and not even accept them as anything. Some people will just not do it. They will not, because they're just so stubborn in their thinking. So many of us don't even know how to deal with the stress and the anxiety of the world because we're so accustomed to, fueling it with alcohol and drugs. We're so accustomed to just venting to the wrong people. We're so accustomed to telling the world our problems instead of focusing on a solution. And you hear these things. You've heard them over and over and time again. But yet and still, when the things in your life starts to change for the worse, when death hits home in your family, you lock yourself in. We have a wake and everybody just gonna suppress it with alcohol and drugs. But when they take their reef off the door, what are you doing then? Like, there's so many scenarios of life that we've handled in a repeated way, and once it's gone, we'll go back to trying to be better. We'll go back to trying to get it right. We'll go back to trying to think in our thoughts and getting our thoughts in the right place. But then when adversity comes again, we go right back to the way we've always done it. We go right back to the way we've always thought, right? Some people can be in a relationship. Everything is going great. Everything is going good. And then as soon as an argument come up, as soon as some disagreement between you and your spouse comes up, then you go back to the shutdown. You go back to the not talking. You go back to the same way you handled your last relationship. There's so many people that deal with when you're talking about elections. You're talking about political gains. There's so many people that just stick to their guns with a political party because that's what they do every November. Nobody wants to change the way they are. They'll change their ways, periodically throughout life. But when adversity comes, when it's time for change, when it's time to make it count, they resort back to the way they've always thought. If you want to change your future, you need to change your thoughts now. You need to change your thoughts when the tough times comes. You can't handle the adversity and the stress and the agony and the anxiety the same way you've always handled it. And if you continue to handle it in that form or fashion, you're going to continue to have the same issues when they rear their head again. And so many people do it. I do it myself. I'm pretty sure you've done it before and continuously do it yourself. But when are you going to change it? When are you going to try something different? When are you going to implement the Be Great Today mindset in the tough times? When are you going to implement the optimist mindset when things occur? So many of us can do it when everything's going good. As Les Brown says, when the children are acting normal, you can have that positive mindset. You can have the faith of a giant or the faith of a mustard seed and believe that everything is going to go right because everything is going right. But when adversity hits, when challenges come, when you lose loved ones, can you refrain from going back to the old way of thinking? Can you refrain from going back to the old way of doing things? Riddle me that. Can you do that? And guess what? The main thing, it takes practice. It takes repeated action. Just like you repeatedly have done certain things in certain times of your life, and you've done it repeatedly, and now it's become second nature that you don't even think about it. You just think about it. If you lose a family member, right? The loss of a loved one. The first thing we're going to do, okay, where's the setup? All right, set up there. We're going to get sodas, pound cakes, alcohol, drugs. The church is going to pray and put the wreath on the door. Everybody's going to sit around and have a good time, laugh, kiki, talk about the good times. Funeral, people boo-hooing, crying, hurting, crying, boom, boom, boom. They're going to ashes to ashes, dust to dust, put them in the ground. Then we go back and do the party again. And then once they take that wreath off the door, and then what? Now you just hide that feeling. They hide that bereavement feeling in the background. And you hold it there. And you hold it there. And you hold it there. Until the next person dies. And you do that cycle over and over again. But where's the therapy? Where's the actual talking about that person? There's so many people that die that we don't talk about them until their birthday and we post it on Facebook. There's so many people that we lost that's near and dear to our heart that we can only put it on a social media post. But when the family comes together, whether it be graduation as we have right now in the country today, no one talks about the people that we lost. People have to hide that pain. People suppress it deep down. And they don't talk about it. They don't bring it out. They don't express themselves about the situation and the hurt they dealt with. And the only time they bring it back up, or the only time they deal with it, is when they down in a bottle of Casamigos, or a bottle of Hennessy, or passing the blunt. There's so many things that we do in regular form. There's so many things that we repeatedly do over and over again that we don't even think about it. We do it without thinking. And that's the whole reason for this show. If you want to change your future, you got to change your thoughts right now. If you want to change the things you are to come in your life, you got to change the way you handle adversity in your life today. When problems occur, when things happen, how are you doing it differently? Are you operating in the same capacity? If you and your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife get into an argument, are you the one that continuously to shut down? Or you the one say, okay, baby, let's talk about this. Let's have this real conversation. When you have fallen out with friends, I'm not calling. That's how you lost your last friend. When you have problems on the job, I'm just going to quit. You're not going to tough through. You're not, like, there's so many things that we do over and over again. There's so many things that we've created as habit, and we do it like it's normal. And we stick to our guns, and we're not willing to change. We're not willing to change our views about anything. It doesn't matter, regardless of the information. It doesn't matter. And if we do find some new information that contradicts our current belief, we're gonna oftentimes point fingers at, oh, okay, well, they did that. Well, what about that? We don't want to accept any new information. We don't want to accept or acknowledge the great things that may be going on the other side, or the things that may be different from what we've always been taught. And I've seen it so many times in so many different scenarios that it's sickening. Me, I'm able, and I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. But I've learned that if the more you're willing to change, the more you're willing to be a chameleon of life and adjust, the better life will be for you. There's so many people that just stand firm on what they believe in, and that's it, and no if and buts about it. I'm not changing, and that's the way I am. And then, and oftentimes it could be detrimental. It can be something that totally is hurting them. But yet and still, they'll continue to do it. They'll continue to do it like it's normal, because guess what? Again, we're creatures of habit. We put the same pants leg in. We put the same arm in, right? Most of us, we get in the car, we got the same routine when we get in the car. There's so many different things that we do repeatedly and on a small scale that we don't really think about it. We don't understand the harm that it is causing us because we're so firm on what we believe is truth. But if you want to change your future, if you want to change the outcome or the trajectory of your life and your family, you got to change your thoughts today. It's time for you to be open. It's time for you to be willing to see things differently sometimes. Even now, let's take, for example, the whole NBA playoffs is going on now. And of course, the whole topic of discussion is LeBron James. But I remember a time, man, the Bulls was my team. Michael Jordan was the guy. And in my opinion, Michael Jordan still is the greatest of all time. But there's so many people that regardless of what LeBron James does or regardless of what he doesn't do, he will never ever be looked at as a great basketball player. He will be looked at as a flopper. He will be looked at as he's not clutch. He will be looked at as, and even though the evidence shows differently, the man has the most, damn near all the records in the NBA, but yet it's still he's not great. He's stat padding. So many people just stand firm on it. And it's just an example. So many people stand firm on their view on LeBron James because you know why? People don't like change. People don't like to see things in a different light. People stand firm. Michael Jordan is greatest all time. And I agree with that. But to say this man is not great, as you can see, the man is the all-time leading scorer, which Kareem record has stood firm on at the record books for over 40 years. But yet and still, this guy comes in who is not a shooter first and passes to Kareem. I'm just trying to understand why is it that this man catches so much scrutiny? Everybody's wanting to find holes and scrutiny into this man's game. In which, in fact, most of the people that talks about him, they've never played in the NBA. It's kind of like when Steve Smith said Cooper Kupp was going to be a number 1 receiver. They called him crazy. Oh, Steve Smith, he's off his rocker. Now, a guy who's played in the NFL, a guy who's seen the game firsthand, arguably one of the greatest receivers of all time as well. But yet and still, you are a person who's never played the game, doesn't know what it takes to get there, and you won't be open to what he has to say. And that's what so many people, there are so many people that will look at people's life, people who have been through so much, people who have failed so many times, people who have lost it all, but they won't listen to that person. Because that person don't know what he's talking about. That person failed, so they definitely don't know. I want to listen to the person who got it right. I get that, but a person who got it wrong can also give you some adequate feedback on what you shouldn't do. You know, it's kind of like with the whole Steve Harvey. People gave Steve Harvey a bad rap. Talking about think like a man. How can Steve Harvey tell you about marriage and he got 5 failed? How many of our marriages he got failed? Because he failed. He failed. Like there's so many things. And again, that's because the ideology of people is they look at failure as a bad thing. They look at it as pain points, as something that's detrimental that you can't come back from. That's why so many people always want to point out the bad things in people's life. That's the very reason. Just like for LeBron James, they want to point out the bad things of his life. It's so many people, the failures of life and the mishaps of life, you learn more than when everything's going right. It's kind of like when you're talking about a relationship, you're talking about a career, a job. The job is great when everything's going good, but let it start getting rocky. Let it start getting toxic. Let it start getting detrimental. Let it start getting, where you don't want to go. Can you still build up the strength to go anyway? Can you still build up the strength to stick in that relationship or that marriage anyway? There's so many people that would willing to throw in the towel. And that's the way we operate more times than not. But if you want to change your future, you got to change your thoughts today. Now, I'm not saying just go through and get treated like a dog. There's so many options and so many different things out here. But at the end of the day, are you willing to change your thoughts about situations and scenarios? Are you willing to change your thoughts about failure and shortcomings? Because they're going to happen in life. And some people just are better at hiding them. And does that mean that, hey, that they got a better life? Does that mean that they got it all together? No. But don't beat yourself up and be so hard on yourself, because when you face adversity and you're handling them in the same way and you're not getting the outcome that you want, and then you go to beating yourself up, it's because you haven't changed the way you handle it. Cause and effect. You look at your life and look at the things you're going through. What put you there? What brought you there? Are you going to change the way you do it, or are you going to stick to your guns? It's just the way I am. This is the way I do things. It's hard. It's hard to stop doing things that you've always done. Me, I started smoking marijuana at 12, 13 years old, drinking alcohol at 12, 13 years old. And here I am, I probably haven't smoked or drunk alcohol in probably 2-3 months. And it's one of the hardest things ever, because I'm so accustomed to when problems occur, when things happen, when friends come by. Hey man, let's go get something to drink. Let's roll up. That's because that's the habit that I've always done. And it's a difficult task when you take something that you've done repeatedly over and over and over again, and you try to replace it with something else. It's hard. It's difficult. It's challenging. But if you want something different, you got to do something different. And I challenge my listeners. I challenge you. Look, Change the way, be more open today. Be more open to information today. Be willing to empathize with people. Put yourself in other people's shoes. Understand that times change. You can't operate the same way you operated in 2008 that you do in 2023. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be productive, I should say. Because life is continuously to change. The way the world is operating today has changed in the last 10, 20 years. So it's time for you to change. It's time for you to operate in a different capacity. It's time for you to implement some new things into your life, into your thought process. Because if you're constantly or you're continuously to operate as you did in the old, you're going to continuously get the same or similar outcomes. Now, some people, well, I'm happy. Okay, well, oftentimes that's the lie we tell ourselves. When we know we're not. We know we wish we could be further. We know we could accomplish more. There's so many people say, well, if I wanted to, I would have. No, you wouldn't have. Just because you want something doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have it. There's so many people that just haven't taken that leap of faith. So many of us just haven't taken a chance or a risk on ourselves. We haven't been mature enough to say, let me look at things a little different. Let me try things a little different. Because we're so accustomed to doing things one way. And I challenge you all to change that thinking. Implement power of positive thinking. Even when things are going, your life is being flipped upside down. Things are happening to you left and right. I challenge you to stop complaining about it. I challenge you to go within. I challenge you to have that inner conversation with yourself and ask yourself, make a detailed inventory list of what's going on in your life right now and find some deliberate, decisive solutions of how you can fix it. And I think we just don't take time enough to sit down and think things through. We just act out of habit. We act out of normal, of routine, the way we've always acted. Many of us don't write down our goals. Many of us don't write down the problems or the failures or the obstacles we are faced with each and every day. I challenge you, write them down. I challenge you right now, get you a piece of paper out and see where you want your life to be. And if you want to change your future, you need to change how you approach those things. If you're not deliberate and you're not decisive about what you want, then you're going to get what you've always gotten. So many of us want new things. We want the marriage, the house, the picket fence, the kids, the family, but we won't change the way we look at life. We're still operating on that old operating system. And you wonder why. The reason why is because you failed to change. You failed to be open. You failed to not take in new information and see it for what it is, but without rearing the heads of how you've always thought. And you're not always right. There's many times throughout the day that I have to tell myself, well, Lamar, you may be wrong there. There's many times when I'm talking to my wife like, well, you know what, Lamar, you may be wrong. You're not always right. And trust me, I'm one of the most bullheaded people that I know. But I've had to change some things. I had to change the way I see things. I've had to change the way I look at life if I want something different, right? I've had a failed marriage before. If I want to fail marriage again, I need to handle it just like I did the last one. No, it's time to be open. It's time to be real with yourself and be honest with yourself that you need to work on yourself, that you need to change some things. You need to tweak some things. You need to look at life a little different. You need to think different. You need to read more. You need to write down what you got going on. You need to be honest with yourself. And so many of us are filled with this whole social media highlight real life that we live. We want to place it like everything is all hunky-dory, that we got it all together. We know everything. So many of us only show up on people's posts just to debate what they said. Just them people post. Leave them people alone. Scroll right on and keep on going. Stop operating in the way you've always operated. You're not always right. And empathize. Put yourself in that person's shoes. That person may see things from a different point of view than you. And just because it's different or just because y'all views clash doesn't make you right and make them wrong. There's so many of us, we like to get in these heated debates and heated back and forth because we want to be right and they wrong. No, they wrong. That's just the way it is. Democrats against Republicans. Christians against Muslims. Gay versus straight, men versus women. It's a whole fiasco. And if we don't check ourselves and we don't start changing the way we see things and we don't be empathetic and open to life for itself, we're gonna find ourselves in a world of trouble. We're gonna find ourselves in a world of hurt. And you don't have to believe. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm just giving you my viewpoint. I'm just giving you what has helped me. And again, I'm still a work in progress, and just as well as you are. But if you're continuously unwilling to change the way you see things and the way you do things in life, you're going to continuously to have the same outcome that you've always had, or at least similar. So that's why I challenge you to switch some of those views. Be open, listen, actively listen. Most people listen just to respond, just to rebut, just to debate, instead of actually listening, taking things for what they are and putting themselves in those people's shoes, right? Just like even the MJ, put yourself in LeBron's shoes. Could you operate in that capacity? Put yourself in MJ's shoes. Could you operate in that capacity? So many people give LeBron a bad rap because they say, well, he said he was the GOAT. Well, if you don't think you're the greatest person of all time, if you don't think you're the greatest at what you do, who else is going to think it? You're waiting on validation for someone else? You're waiting on validation for someone else to tell you you're great? Tell yourself that you're great. Be vocal about it. Be borderline arrogant about it. Instead of being humble. Oh, Jordan would have never. It's 2023. And again, these are just examples of how people think. People think that LeBron is not the greatest just because he said he the greatest. Okay, it's 2023. Guess what? Everybody is super opinionated nowadays. Everybody got an opinion about everything. Everybody got to say so about something or somebody else and what somebody else going on. And it's a sad day when you don't really value yourself more so than what someone else has to say about you. And it's not about basketball. It's not about LeBron and MJ. It's more or less about you and how you do things and how you need to change the way you think if you want to change your future. And until you do that, you're going to get a same outcome in most times. All right? And that's all I got for y'all today, man. I really want you guys to understand that if you want to change your future, you need to change your thoughts today. If you want to change your outcome, you want to change the way life is going for you, you got to start writing some stuff down. Even write down the things you want and write down the problems and the obstacles you'll face today. And then write down some solutions and how you're going to do it differently. And you have to repeatedly do that. You got to do it constantly. It took you years to get the way that you think. It took you years to develop that. So it's going to take years for you to unlearn that. It's going to take repeated action. It's going to take you to do it over and over again, just like you've done the same action you've done in the past over and over again. It's going to take it. And so many of us don't want to put in the work. So we resort back to, again, we're creatures of a habit. We resort back to the same way we've always done it. And so many of us, my people who have driven a 5-speed before, after driving a 5-speed for years and years and years, when you actually get in a automatic transmission car, you're constantly reaching for the clutch because that's just habit. And if you're talking about changing the way you look at life and you're talking about changing the way you're trying to handle life, if you're not careful and you're not constantly reminding yourself, you're going to be reaching for that clutch. You're going to be reaching for the old way you've done it. Now that even though the clutch is not even there. But if you want something different, you got to do something different. You got to start thinking different. You got to start looking at life in a different lens. And that's what I really want my listeners to understand, that you have it. You have what it takes. You are the greatest person. You don't need validation from me. You need validation from yourself. You need to tell yourself that, hey, I'm working on this. I'm doing better. I'm gonna change the way. I'm gonna be more open. I'm gonna be more empathetic. I'm gonna be willing to learn. I'm gonna be an active listener. I'm gonna listen to comprehend instead of listening to respond. There's so many things that we can work on, and I challenge you to work on them right now. I challenge you to start today, because if not, tomorrow it never comes. We already know that. So I challenge you to start working on that now. Write down your goals. Power of positive thinking. Understand that the world doesn't revolve around you, and we already know that. And stop lying to yourself, well, my life is good. No, your life could be so much better, and I'm pretty sure you want better. And I challenge you to make it better by doing something different. All right? So y'all make sure y'all go check me out. Mr. Be Great Today on TikTok, YouTube, and Fanbase. Great Today INC on IG, and On Air with Mr. Be Great Today on Facebook. I love you all, and you already know. Be great today. Peace.